What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10x Recruiting brought to you by MetaView. Sal, what's up, man? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Looking sharp.
I appreciate that. Your flow of your hair is looking phenomenal as usual. So let's get into the thing, man. We talked to Jeff Moore today, who is the VP of Talent Operations and Workspaces at Toast. Jeff is an absolute legend. What were your takeaways, Sal?
Two big takeaways for me. One was his personal transition from Google to Toast and sort of what does his family think of this? I think it's a good reminder again of this sort of the magnitude of the decision that you're working with candidates on when they're trying to sort of convince them to move company, especially away from like a FAANG company to whatever startup might be, is just huge. It's like an identity question, basically. And then the other thing you got me thinking about was this, that you guys talked about talent density. With the way you guys talked about it, I sort of ended up coming away, you know what talent density really is? I think most importantly, in a funny way, it's not actually who you hire. It's actually almost just who you fire. Because in the conversation, he talks about, which I agree with, like not everyone can be like a rock star. So I don't think that's what we mean by talent density. It's like every single person in your company is a total rock star. What it really means is you have a bar that you sort of very diligently don't compromise. And the main way you recognize that people that are sort of below that bar, yes, you try during the actual interview and assessment process, but really it's once they're in seat. My point is just with the way you guys riffed on it, I was like, you know what talent density really is? It's like having the discipline to hold that line even when it's uncomfortable, which you almost always means firing.
I actually love the way that you frame that. I think that's exactly right. The only other thing I'll add on that piece is I actually do think when you're really early stage, I call it like, first 50 employees, like you do need all A players. In larger companies, you do have like specific jobs to be done that need to be done and don't need to be done by the rock stars of the rock stars. But I do think what Jeff is talking about, given he's working at, Toast today, which is, a couple thousand people. He was at Google before, which is 100,000 people, is like ultimately like you must have people that meet and exceed the bar. But if you do have 100,000 rock stars, there's going to be so much infighting and clashing. And so I have evolved on that topic, but I think you're exactly right to say talent density is ultimately like, who are you firing and who are you tolerating? My two takeaways, the first one is, you had mentioned Jeff, his decision to leave Google and join Toast. What I loved about that is actually the relationship between him and that executive recruiter. So that recruiter had been talking to Jeff for like 8 to 10 years. He had called him 5 to 6 times. And every time there was an opportunity in Boston, Jeff was in the Bay Area at the time, like Jeff told him, hey, I'm thinking about Boston, eventually like one of these moves. It's the power of a recruiter listening to what somebody's optimizing for, filtering for that thing, and making sure that you're not wasting someone's time when you pick up the phone and talk to them about it. And there's something around this, like everyone talks about this relationship thing, but no one breaks down like how do you actually build relationships with people? Well, this is a way to do it in exec recruiting, which is like when somebody tells you what they're optimizing for, you hear that, you listen to that, and you only send them things that meet that criteria. The other one for me was, Jeff walked away from a massive team at Google and he joins Toast and they're 22 people. And he has to scale this thing up to 80 people in 4 months. And the thing I was like really, pushing Jeff on is like, how did you get the buy-in to do that? Because I think at a lot of, smaller companies, they're going to be really worried about you walking in with your big company hat, trying to go build a massive army of people to go do work without you actually like getting in there and getting things done. And Jeff was like really clear about it. He's like, look, like not everything you learn from Google is right. But one thing is super clear. You must hire recruiters in order to make scaled hires. And so that's one of my big learnings on this is like, if you're walking into a leadership role and you have a big build out to do, you got to get really clear about what your plans are before you join the company. So here's our episode of 10X Recruiting brought to you by MetaView with Jeff Moore. This is 10X Recruiting, a podcast from MetaView. Let's get after it. All right, Jeff, you are one of the people that I admired the most at Google. Thank you for joining the pod.
I'm psyched to be here, man. I'm back at you.
All right. So, I think you were at Google for like 30 years, more like 13, but felt like 30. And I've known you since 2012 because you had achieved legend status, which few people at Google do. And to be honest, I really thought you were going to die there. But you decided to leave. Even though you had a sick job, you had prestige, you had the respect of the business. Why did you leave to join Toast?
All right. First, you're way too kind. Certainly not a legend. Definitely not, but I appreciate it so much. It's funny. I think a lot of people are probably stuck in a similar seat that I was in. It's not stuck, to your point, right? It's a sick job. It's a great company. You're doing great. It's not stuck. Everyone would kill to be stuck in a great gig at Google, right? But when I look back at the thought process, what for me, I really, at the end of at the end of the day, I like to build things. I like to solve hard problems, and I like to scale stuff. And at Google, I got to the point where I was like, look up, it's my boss's gig, that I don't want to do that job. Like, that's not me. That's not a TA job. I mean, it is a TA job, but like, it's not the kind of TA. I like to be in the weeds, right? So you have that piece of it, which is like, well, up, there's nowhere to go up, which is a weird place to think about it at a company the size of Google. And then when I look sort of, around, I'm like, but I'm in the best gig. Like, this is actually I'm in the best job. I love the clients I work with. I get to work with like consumer hardware and like all this cool stuff. Wow. I'm like in my mid 40s and there's nowhere to go. And for me, it was like, okay, well, if I'm going to leave for something that I think is just going to be super cool and hit me in different ways and give me different exposures. And so for me, when Toast called, it was like, oh, I can help businesses recover from COVID. That hits differently than like, I'm going to help build out AdWords, or I'm going to build more Pixel phones, whatever you're building, right? It's like very personal. And, like we were talking about before, I can walk out the street, grab a coffee at my favorite coffee shop, touch Toast, and go out for lunch at the restaurant up the street, touch Toast, and I can go out for dinner in the city, touch Toast. And that is just like, there's a feeling there that I think it's hard to quantify. It's hard to get that at a big tech company. I get these texts from my dad, or a call from my dad that's like, I was in the coffee shop down the street and I saw that they were on Toast. And so I asked the server how they like it. And I'm like, okay, they've gone through the journey I went through, which is like, okay, I left big tech, which was part of my identity, and then joined this thing, which is super cool and super fun. And now here's my dad walking around, the west coast of Florida, asking servers how they like the product that his son is hiring people for. And I'm like, this is great. Like,
That's dope. It's another level of ownership when you're there early, right? Like,
yeah.
Google is an amazing brand, an amazing company, but it's huge, right? Compared to like POS services, it's like, well, you don't really think about it until it becomes like what it is today. And obviously it's like, you guys are growing super fast. I do want to talk to you quickly about the executive recruiting process
Sure.
that you had leaving Google to join Toast.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely. I had an executive that I've known forever, good friend of mine. And he had called me, and I initially was like, I'm not leaving Google for Toast. Like, it's too small. It's not stable enough. All these things that are the reason you never leave a Google, right? And he was really funny because he was like, dude, you just need to trust me and talk to, the CPO, Annie, at the time. Like, you're going to love her and it's going to work out great. Trust me. And it was funny because literally he then gave me a hard time of like, you tell everybody they should take the call. And I had to convince you to take the call.
Yep.
And then sure enough, here I am, 4 years later, loving it.
Wasn't this exec recruiter like calling you throughout the years too? And like, it was a relationship that he was fostering as time went on?
Yeah, we kept in touch the entire time I was out in California. Anytime a role in Boston popped up, I'd get a call. Yeah.
Wow.
So we knew each other really well. I knew my motivations and knew what I was looking for. Recruiting.
That is what recruiting actually is, right? And, I think oftentimes recruiters get into this mode where it's just that for whatever reason, it's not the right fit for the candidate. And then they're just gone for forever, right? We never think about that person ever again. And this is one of those relationships, as you were telling me in our prep call, it's like, this was lasting for years. Like, you guys had been in contact forever, and you basically told them, only ping me about legit opportunities in Boston.
Yeah.
And
like
that's what he did.
8 years, probably called me on, I don't know, 5 or 6 gigs over the years. And then it's just the right one at the right time, which is like the essence of recruiting. It's not the, pushing volume kind of a game.
Ollie Benham, who's the founder of Riviera Partners, once told me executives are like flowers in the spring. They only come out for a little while and then they go away for a very, very long time.
It's true. Well, and you've got to have the relationships. I mean, like he knew it was important for me to get back to the East Coast. He knew I wanted to be back on a certain timeline so my daughter could spend more time with our families. He knew there were windows. He knew my daughter's age. Like he knew the deal. Which is why, yeah, right. And he's why I'm here.
I love that. All right. So when you left Google, your team was like 70 people. And then you walk into Toast and the team's like 20 to 22 people. That is a completely different world. How did you design your team and how did you think about hitting hiring goals when you first got to Toast?
This is what I think is great about working at, some of the big tech companies is they teach you a playbook. Now, you don't need to use every chapter. Some of the chapters are terrible actually, and you want to skip them, but there are nuggets that are gold that you probably don't learn in other places. And so, when I joined Toast, like the first few weeks, we're just getting to like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, what are we trying to do? How many hires are we trying to make? What's working? What's not working? What's on fire? Your classic jump in and triage. And really quickly, it became apparent to me, we're not going to get there if we don't scale the team quick. And so we scaled the team up to like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 recruiters.
Wow. And what time period?
It was like 3 or 4 months.
That is insane.
But Nolan, right? You think about it, right? Like, chapter 1, page 3 of the Google TA playbook back in the day, can't hit your hiring goal if you don't have the recruiters.
Exactly.
And so it's like, I got to just go, because if I don't go, nothing else goes. And the entire supply chain, the entire value proposition is just stuck because I didn't go. And so it's like, foot in the dirt and go.
What about exec buy-in? Because I think there's a narrative, especially around people who leave places like Google and Meta, that you guys are, you're coming in to build these like gigantic teams.
Yeah.
And you're basically going to go build like a new world underneath you. How did you get that exec buy-in, especially if like they haven't experienced it before?
It's where, and it's like super, super corny phrasing and everyone uses it too much, but it's like actually being data-driven, actually having a philosophy, and actually being willing to just articulate, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is what it's going to cost. And this is what you're going to get. And this is how I think about it. And so when you sort of marry up, hey, you want to hire whatever, 100 people, 200 people, 50,000 people, doesn't matter. I can do it for X grand, a hire. Just run the math, give me that money, and then we'll just do this thing. And if the number sounds reasonable to you, then let's rock and roll. And so, I think that's where, if you go back to the, like, why would you leave a Google? It's because you find an organization that gets it and is willing to sort of like trust you to come in and do your job, not be like, well, that's not how we do TA here. So you brought me in to do TA a little differently. Yep. I'm not going to do the Google playbook or the Meta playbook. I'm going to take a couple pages of that one, but then I'm going to write our own novel. And then we're just going to rock and roll off our new novel.
How did you vet that they were going to get it in the interview process?
That's always the rub, right? It's like, there's no science to that. I think it was a lot of questions. One of the, actually, I would say with 2 of the people I interviewed, we did sort of like a scenario, like talk me through how you would solve this problem, like a TA problem. And I mean, if you're a recruiting nerd, you love those, like, how would you hire a person on the moon? Great. Yeah, let's go. Right. Like, I don't know. And so we had done a couple of, case studies, if you want to call them that. They were a little bit more informal than that, which is like, again, my wheelhouse. Love it. I mean, Google GCA interview question on steroids.
Exactly.
And, as you're doing those, it's like, are they picking up what I'm putting down? And are we like having a collaborative conversation about what I'm trying to get done and how I would do it, which gives you a ton of confidence that you've got a bunch of people around you that are good. I mean, the other thing, I look at, the chief people officer when I joined, Annie, she's got a huge track record. She's been at a bunch of companies. She's done this before. This isn't her first time, got a great leadership team, got co-founders, people, everyone that's super engaged and wants the business to succeed. Makes it easy.
Yeah.
But you've got to let, I probably talked to people for 4 months.
Did you really? Tell me more about that. Like, how many people did you talk to? Why did it take 4 months? Like, what's the thought process there?
I don't remember how many people I talked to. It was probably like 7 or 8. Like, but I talked to Annie, my boss, probably like 5 or 6 times. which for me is like P0, because like that's the relationship that's going to make or break life, probably. I think, when you zoom out and think about it, for me, I was super passive. Right. If you want to go fast, you're probably not getting me out of Google because I need to like work through the job change. I got to work through I'm relocating cross country. I got to work through the emotions. I got to work through all of that stuff. And it just was like, to your point, right? Flowers pop up in the spring. Well, it was a long spring that year, but I was in no rush. And so we were able to have long conversations and work through the process in a way that was like, it worked for me. It probably, would it have worked for everybody? Probably not, but it worked great for me because I was like, I'm going to make this decision like in my own timelines in alignment with you guys. This was what, fall of 2020, like COVID's messing up the world. Nobody's like,
Totally.
clearly. So
It is a reminder though that, good recruiters go as fast as the candidate wants to go.
yeah, totally.
Like the process actually needs to be bespoke to the person versus, oh, we move really fast here. And I think there's a bias right now, especially amongst like some of these AI companies that just like, we're going to go, pedal to the metal all the way in. We move super fast. Like we're a grind culture. I had one last week, super fast growing company. They have hiring problems. A friend pings me and is like, hey, will you talk to him? I'm like, sure. In the email chain, I have yet to meet these guys. In the email chain, they're like, hey, you have like the perfect background. Like, will you come work here? And I'm like, no, dude, there's no courting here. Like, there's no like relationship building here. Like, this isn't real life humanity. Like, you're just trying to like shove me through.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder that actually you need to be more thoughtful, especially as you move up the chain in seniority.
Yeah. I mean, I've told you my whole philosophy on this stuff, right? I mean, I'm sure I have.
No, tell me. I want to hear it.
So my first recruiting gig, I worked for this guy, Darren Stavala. Darren's the best. Maybe he'll watch this, probably not. He'll be like, screw that guy. But I worked for this guy, Darren, and I'd never recruited before. So I was like learning agency recruiting, knucklehead, pick up the phone and make 150 calls a day guy, right? That was me. And I'll never forget, like my first day, he sat me down. He's like, look, changing jobs is one of the most stressful things a person does. Change a job, get married, lose a loved one, have a kid, buy a house.
Exactly.
Like those are the most stressful things you are going to do in your career. Jeff, if you don't treat this job change that you're trying to get people to do with that level of reverence, you will never be good at this job. And I like wear that like as a badge. So true.
Yep.
Like I don't want to be slammed through a 3-day process because it's convenient for the company.
It also shows that they don't get it, they don't get it if they handle it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And so I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it seems like that's actually the first test is like how they interact with you, especially at the beginning of the process. Do they know how to recruit great talent? Because it turns out recruiting great talent needs to be unique to the individual.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like I might have questions that are totally different than you have on a gig. But if the same recruiter is trying to recruit the two of us and they're just like coming in with their script and pounding away, they're going to get neither of us because you're worrying about this, I'm worrying about that. But yeah, it's funny. I think, in this like hyper driven, metric driven, world we live in, everyone's trying to go like, oh, I'm the fastest at my time to hire. Great. You're probably also fastest at your time to attrit. It's probably not great.
Exactly. That's actually a good one. It's like another one of those like metrics people talk about. That's probably a vanity metric.
Yeah.
Okay. So team was 22. How big did you grow it in 3-4 months?
I don't know, call it 80 for sake of discussion.
Oh my God. Okay. How did you do that? Like, talk to me about the mechanics of actually like making that thing happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, right? It's, it literally is Google TA playbook page, like page 1, chapter 1. I mean, it is a combination of, adding full-time people, adding managers, building out functions, building out specialization, and then like finding your stars and building your team around stars that can come in and deliver. And so, for me, the company was, the team, was really like in a post-COVID situation. And so everyone was doing a lot of everything, which was fine. They were great. But it's like, okay, well, if we're going to get bigger here, you can't be working on a PM job, a software engineering job, a legal job, and a sales job. It's not going to work. So like really sort of figuring out how do you put in place some functional profile specific type TA teams.
Yeah.
Expertise. Really lean in and crank on things that you're going to hire. You're not going to hire one of these. You're going to hire 100 of these or 2 of these. And so it was really like moving fast to build out those things. And it's not perfect, right? You never do it perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. And it's like, well, I think I need this. I think I need that. Whoops, didn't need that. My bad. That's not cool. I got to fix that. I'm going to see if I can redeploy people here or there, because you're trying to move as fast as you can, but you have zero understanding of the business. You've like, been there for a hot minute, but you're like, I've been here for a hot minute. I barely know where the restrooms are, but I'm also the biggest gate. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into if you've been at a bigger company, like, a big tech company, because it doesn't really work that way there, right? You can come in, you can ramp, you can learn things, you can figure it out. The processes are all built. You just like plug into the machine, like the board comes in, it sticks a wire in your head and you're off. It doesn't work that way in a small company, right? You've got to like figure it out. But like while you're figuring it out, everyone's like, well, what have you done? So
Yeah, you have to get wins early in order to establish trust.
Yeah.
How does one even begin to think about scaling that team? Specifically with like, are you using agencies to help you like source these people, or like walk me even do like the top of the funnel strategy to find them? What are you looking for on resumes and great recruiters? And then how do you go and assess these people?
For me, I mean, it was all network for the most part. So like friends of friends, referrals of friends, people I knew, whatever, we're recruiters, Nolan.
Yeah, that's the benefit of experienced recruiters.
Right. Been doing this a while. But you can't just rely on that. You have to take referrals from people you don't know. You've got to reach out, like all of the above. And so the team is an amazing combination of people from everywhere, which is so cool. It's not like, oh, Jeff took 80 people out of Google. Nope, not at all. There are some, but it's this combination which you pull together. And for me, I'm a big recruiting as a passion sport. And so, if you think about what I was saying about this whole, treat it with a level of reverence. I ask a lot of people, what's the one hire you made that at Thanksgiving dinner, you tell your whole family and you're so excited about? I want to hear that story. And like the great candidates, the great recruiters are like, this guy, I met Nolan Church. He's got
Yep.
this Niners helmet behind him, and I'm recruiting for the Niners. And I called this guy and it's dream gig, and he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. And it's like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, yep, I want an army of that. I want that like energy and passion. Because if I'm going to have a team of people convincing folks to take a humongous personal leap, I want them to love it. I don't want them to treat it like another transaction.
The other thing that you get from that question, though, is do they understand how that person impacted the business?
Yeah, totally.
Right? Because like, you talked a little bit earlier about aligning recruiters to specific roles. Well, the thing you get there is you get a lot of more relationship building between the hiring manager and that recruiter. And so then they're kind of in the trenches together. And then that recruiter is way more aligned with the outcomes for that hiring manager, such that they feel like they're actually part of the team. Like that's actually like where the magic is. And that's what makes me think about, somebody actually asked me this question the other day, and it's very clear in my mind who this person is. And it's like, well, the reason it's that person is because one, they were the best person on the team. Like it truly was like one of those cracked engineers. But not only was like he the best engineer, he was able to recruit people that were elite. Like he was like a talent magnet. And oh, by the way, he was able to like influence leadership on shit that I had been trying to get done for years and wasn't able to do that.
Yeah.
It's so distinct in my mind who that person is. And I think a lot of recruiters, when, they just get into kind of the numbers game.
Totally.
And the numbers game actually is like not where the magic is. The magic is in the elite talent that you're able to bring on board.
I had an intern at Google that worked for me. One of the intern programs at Google. I'll never forget. This guy worked for me easily 15 years ago. Travis, probably not listening. Definitely not. Like Jeff is full of crap. I'll never forget. I interviewed this guy. I asked him to give me like a leadership example. Sometime he made a leadership decision. It wasn't the right one. What happened? He goes on to tell me about how he was a platoon leader in Afghanistan, and the previous platoon leader was a hard ass. And so he came in, he took over. He was a little more loosey-goosey with some of the stuff that seemed petty to him. Well, their base gets overrun with rats because he's loosey-goosey on like throw out your trash. And he's like, well, and so I learned, and he's going through, and it's like, he's halfway through the conversation. I'm like, dude, you're hired. Like you're hired. Your level of emotional intelligence and the level of detail in your example, I'll hire you to do anything because you're going to come in and be an absolute machine at anything. And it's like, I want the recruiters that can tell me 10 or 15 or 100 of those stories.
Yep.
Because then you know your talent and you know what they can bring to the company.
It's also true, though, that when you're moving that fast, and just kind of in general in hiring, you're going to miss, right? So how do you evaluate the performance of your team? And how do you think about like, what does that look like? And how do you move, how do you think about the philosophy of recruiting performance?
I think recruiting performance it's a marriage of art and science, right? I mean, I hate using corny Google phrases that still stick, but they do, right? It's the what and how. I think a lot of times we over-index on that what. Oh, they hired 47 people. Oh, they hired 3 people. They're terrible or they're great. And for me, it's really about how do you wed that, you know, well, if I wanted you to hire 20 people and you hired 18, but every VP in your organization is telling me you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, I'll eat the miss on 2 because I really want, and at the end of the day, we're a client service organization. We're a customer facing organization. That matters. It's not the end all, right? It can be like, oh, I hired 0 people, but everyone loves me. That's probably not great. But I really think it's marrying that art and that science of, how many hires do we need to deliver for the business, which we know is, trying to hit that pin dead on is almost impossible between attrition and all the stuff that happens trying to hit a hiring goal. So we can be close enough, but it really is like also are you bringing your team along? I mean, I used to say to my team at Google, like I had my team and this, Google Jeff, had my team in 3 buckets. The do your job bucket. Bucket number 1, do your job. I need you to hire 3 people, hire 3 people. Great. I need dozens of you. Next bucket. People I really love, you're making a huge difference. You find some inefficiency, you figure something out, you help everybody around you. Amazing. I need a bunch of those people too. Then there's the top. You find something out and you enable my entire team. And my entire team of whatever, 20 people, 50 people, 70 people, go up a notch because of you. Like, I need a bunch of those people too. And so you need them all. It's not this linear thing where you can have everybody that does, everyone's just a delivery machine. You've got to have people that are able to think outside of the box and make the whole system better.
That's counter, though, to the talent density discussion that every company is currently having right now, right? Like what you're saying, I actually do believe, right? Like you need people who are just going to like do the job. I think like framing it as A or B players is like not the right frame. It's more of just like they're reliable, they're consistent, but maybe they're not as driven due to outside obligations or whatever it may be is like the tops. But like Coinbase would say something else, right? Coinbase would say like only A plus. That's who we want here. We'll wait until we get those people in the like. What do you think about that philosophy?
I think talent density is very buzzwordy right now. And I would argue if I've got a team of recruiters that are all able for me to hit my goal and whatever goals I have, that is a talent dense team. If I'm doing everything I need to do and I'm doing it on time, on budget, everybody's happy. I don't think that there's a problem with that. I think you can get confused, get over your skis a bit if you're thinking everybody is an A plus player, because inevitably you still have performance issues in that team.
Yep.
I don't know. I just think we say the same words a lot in talent density, but we never step back and go, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for Coinbase? What does it mean for Google? What does it mean for Jeff? Whatever. It doesn't matter. I think it should mean different things for different organizations because like I have a different goal than Coinbase.
And you work with different people and you have different founders that care about different things.
Yeah. And I think everybody wants great teams and talent dense organizations. Please do not take it as that. But I think the definition is probably different depending on what you're trying to solve for, as opposed to like everybody's an A player. I mean, if I have a recruiter that hits their goal every single quarter for years, I don't know. That's an A player. Maybe not an A plus player, but I don't know. That's pretty darn good if they're hitting all their numbers and everyone on their team likes them, right? Like think back to your team at Google. Did everyone on that team hit all their goals? Heck no.
No, definitely not.
Like, is a little bit of the talent density conversation because we were in these massive orgs that were filled with people that actually weren't performing? That's probably the root cause on some of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, were you over-resourced? Because being over-resourced means you're not talent dense.
It's very, very true. And you've mentioned budget a couple of times, which we haven't talked a whole lot about on the show, but cost per hire, it's different at every organization. It's kind of like a constant pressure that you have from finance, but it does feel like in the era of AI, this is really under the gun right now? Like, are you feeling pressure about cost per hire now in your org?
No, but I've always from day zero been like, I'm going to try to deliver as cost efficiently as I possibly can. I'm not trying to build an army. I'm trying to build a team that can deliver for the business and accelerate us forward, period. You know what I mean? Like I know the cost per hire at other places I've worked. And I'm like, oh, if I ran the math, this is how much money I'd have. I don't care. Like my job is to deliver and figure it out and do it efficiently. And so we haven't budged. I don't feel any pressure. The bigger pressure is just making sure that we can adapt as things evolve and change. But no.
But I think you don't feel pressure because you came in and you set the narrative and the expectation.
Totally.
You got alignment.
Totally.
People bought into that, right? And then you proved that you could do it. Like that's actually the reason why you don't feel pressure is because you did it from the outset.
Totally. Well, like, isn't that your job as a TA leader?
Yeah, but I think it's intrinsic in you. And I think what ends up happening with others, I mean, this happened with me, right? You get into a job potentially that, you're over your skis on. Then you start feeling pressure, right? Because every single one of these jobs, when you walk in at your level, the reason they're hiring you is because they got big fucking problems and they got to hire, right? And so all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, everything's on fire. I didn't realize like how on fire it was. And the trap is that you yourself, like, you put the fire helmet on and the fire retardant suit and you got the hose and you're like in there on the front lines every day and you're not taking enough time at the strategic level, which is a fluffy word, but like really what it means is aligning with the leadership team on what it's going to take in order to hit the goals.
Right. Totally. And I think that's exactly what is, that's kind of the job, right? Like,
That is
hey,
the job.
you want to spike hiring over here. Well, I'm going to burn hot on my cost per hire until we catch up. Okay, great. Like, hey, I can't catch up on cost per hire if every single hire we make is a senior director. It's super expensive. And I think it's being really transparent around like, hey, look, I can do these things, but everything I have to do has a different cost associated to it. And then how do I flex it all within there? Because, you would never run a TA organization just on like, well, an agency would charge me X for that or Y for that. Here's my budget. I did the math. It doesn't really work that way. But I think it's something that a lot of TA leaders miss, to your point, right? You're so busy burning, you don't care what the fire extinguisher is. And then you're really over your skis because now you're a flaming red cost center too. Totally.
Talk to me a bit about your theory on sourcers.
I led sourcing teams for years at Google. I think sourcing is very necessary in some pockets. I don't think it's nearly as broad-based as it's probably been historically. I don't know how many sources we had at Google. We had a lot of sources at Google, probably thousands. I have no idea. But like, if you go back to that efficiency, right? I'm going to sound like that guy, but you go back to that efficiency. If I have a sourcer and a recruiter, I've got two resources working on a rack. So are they twice as productive working together? Or am I better off just putting two recruiters on two different sets of racks? And so for me, that's a lot of where the mindset shifts. So like when I think about it, like, do I need sources for executive search? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Do I need a sourcer helping on a entry-level sales role? Probably not. But I think, like the way big tech recruiting went the last 20 years was you had these armies of sourcers that were out there pounding on the table for talent. I also think, and you and I probably haven't talked about it too much, one of my big things, if you think back to when all those teams, when whatever all those teams were built 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was hard to find people. So you needed somebody out there banging through the bushes to find great engineers or great PMs or whatever. Talent's kind of like finding people's a commodity now. You and I could go on LinkedIn for free and find thousands of people to do whatever job you and I wanted to fill right now. So that's a much different job than it was like when I started and I handed a phone book and a phone. You know what I mean? Like, Jeff, just go call people and find referrals. Okay, that's really efficient. I'll make 100 calls and talk to 2 humans. Awesome. Now, people have flooded with inbound applications and you can find anybody you want on the internet.
I had not considered it like from the first principles of why did sourcers exist to begin with. And, to your point, I remember like SRE hiring at Google was always like the hardest. It was like impossible to find these people. They weren't on LinkedIn. Like you literally like had to do crazy things online to not only find the person, find their contact information, it was like you were like a private investigator,
Yep.
like figuring out who these people were.
Yeah.
But that's no longer the case. Like literally everybody's on LinkedIn. And so it's just not hard to find the talent anymore. So why
Or
do you
they're on-
need sourcing?
Yeah. Or they're on an open source. Like there's 1,000
Yeah.
places to go to find people. Now, and that's not to say you don't need sourcing, right? Like you don't need as much sourcing. I think you put it very strategically where you need it, and it's incredible. But when you think about, again, first principles, people are finding talent's a commodity.
Totally is.
And it's funny because you don't realize it. I feel like we all woke up one day, but then you've got legacy behaviors and legacy like, oh, my recruiters don't source. What do you mean recruiters don't source? That's the job. It's half the job. Everybody should be sourcing.
To your point around finding talent is a commodity, if that's true, right, then the alpha is actually in the relationship building, the understanding of what's actually going on with the person, how we win them, how we find other people like them. You know, it becomes that becomes the human dynamic game of what is an amazing recruiter.
Totally. It actually brings it back to what it should be. It makes it actually what it should be, which is like you have to be able to build relationships with your hiring managers and with your candidates and figure out if it's the right fit and then make it happen or not and find somebody else. But it's like, it's not rocket science. If it was, I wouldn't be doing it.
I totally disagree with you. I've been thinking a lot more around, you know, human dynamics. I literally had this thought today, so I'm going to test it with you.
Here we go.
I think the bias trainings that we went through are a psyop. Like, I really think so, because look, it turns out like I'm not everyone's cup of tea and you're not either. And that's okay. Like we should be able to talk about that. And that is actually, to your point around art, that is where art is in recruiting, which is I understand this human. I understand the psychology of the human. I understand who's going to work well with the human on both sides of the table. And I'm able to call out flags and what could potentially go wrong before it does, such that like I'm predicting the future for everybody.
Oh, man. I'm not sure I would go bias training as a psyop. That's probably beyond, that's over the line for me. And I do think, you know, some of the bias trainings are really well grounded, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to call this person because they went to a state school. Well, that's probably crappy.
Agreed. For sure. You
So,
get it.
you know, you're being extreme. I love it.
I'm being hyperbolic.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, finding great people is an art. And we can measure it and treat it like a science. But at the end of the day, it's art. Yeah.
And it always will be. Jeff, where can people find you?
Can find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find there. Jeff Moore. I have a terrible profile picture. Easy to find.
Yeah. What's going on there, man?
I don't know. I had one before that I loved, and then I did a headshot, and I'm like, I really don't like that headshot. I look old. I don't know. Maybe I just am old. But yeah, LinkedIn's the best place to find me. I'm pretty active. Like, I'm not an active poster. I'm active behind the scenes talking to people and networking.
Love it. Thanks for taking the time, brother.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here.